Hi, I'm Sensei Allison from Code Ninjas Wellesley. Understanding arrays is a lot easier if we make some and play with them. So let's revisit a tool we learned about in the Functions Part 1 video, the console. I'm just going to open a new tab on my web browser, right-click on a blank space, and select Inspect Element, and then open the console. I'm using Firefox, but most browsers have this same feature. The only browser you wouldn't want to use is probably Internet Explorer. Let's declare a variable list. I'm just going to open a new tab on my web browser, right-click on a blank space, and select Inspect Element. And then I'm going to open the console. I'm using Firefox, but most browsers have this same feature. The only browser you wouldn't want to use is probably Internet Explorer. Let's declare a variable list. If we type in the variable we just declared, we'll see what the variable contains. We haven't used our assignment operator yet, so list is undefined right now. Let's change that by assigning an array to it. We'll make an array of 5 letters. Now, if we ask the console for list, it gives us the array of letters we just made. Let's try to access different elements of the array. We do this by typing in the array name, an opening square bracket, and the index of the element, followed by a closing square bracket. Remember that we start counting with 0, not 1. So, if I type in, say, list 0, that's A. List 1 is B. List 2 is C. What happens if we try to access an element of list that doesn't exist? Say, list 5. The computer doesn't know what we're talking about because we haven't given it any values to associate with a 6th element. You may be saying, well, we just typed list 5, a 6th element. Remember that we started counting at 0. So list 5 refers to a 6th element. We can fix this by assigning the 6th slot of list to a new element. So if we ask again for the 5th element of list, instead of undefined, now we get F. JavaScript allows you to change the size of arrays. Changing the size of an array means changing the number of elements. Other languages, like Java, require you to initialize an array with a set number of indexes. Those indexes are either null or hold one value, and the number of indexes never increases or decreases. A better way to add new elements to an array is the push method. This is because if you try to add an element and accidentally use too high of an index, you'll have a bunch of indexes in between elements that hold undefined. So let's say we use list 13, and we assign list 13 to Z. Now, our last element that we added was G, which was the 7th element. So if we go in and we ask, what's the 9th element of list, we'll get undefined because we didn't put any elements in between those spaces. If you use too small of an index, you'll replace an element of your array where you probably didn't mean to. So let's say that I forget that I have 7 elements so far, not counting the Z after all the spaces. And I say list 4 equals H. So now if I look at what list holds, we replaced the E. I don't think that we meant to do that. And you can see that there are all these empty slots here still from the Z. So we want to make sure that we use list.push because it makes sure that we don't accidentally replace an element and we don't add in a bunch of empty slots into our array. What about list -1? This is a nonsense value because you're basically trying to get the computer to look for an element of list before list's block of memory. List -1 will never be a valid access to an element. You should only use positive numbers in the indexes, and at that, only positive whole numbers. Thanks for watching. Come back soon for part 3 of learning about arrays.